delighted to say we are also joined by comedian Jo Caulfield, who's here to tell us about her new tour, Here Comes Trouble. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's always difficult to say to a comedian, tell us about your new tour. What do you say in response to that? Well, it's good, it's funny. I'm going around the country.
They do. People go, what can we expect from your show? And I go, well, expect sounds too much, you know. It's going to be funny. So I always say, I talk about real life things. That's what and normally if something annoys me, then I go, oh, there's something to mine there. Like I recently went for dinner with someone, you know, you've had a friend and you've suddenly realised you've never eaten with them. And then they are the most terrible, noisy eater.
Yeah.
This was like a washing machine going round.
Really?
Like really just, oh my God, how did I not know this about you?
Is that selfishness, do you think, or...?
I don't know, but I'm one of those people, there's a thing, is it misophonia? Yeah, so I'm one of those, oh my God, I might have to stab you in the eye. But I also make me think, like, if they even suggest going for coffee now, I'll go, well, are you going to order any food? Because I'll have to go to another table. So it's sort of stuff like that. Relationships, I've been married a very long time. So I talk about my husband.
Do you run out of material after a long time?
No, he is the gift that keeps on disappointing.
But I always wonder, with comedy, when comedians talk about their spouse, and the classic being Les Dawson, would always go, this is before your time, so my wife's legs look like the Cotswolds. And I never knew whether she got so many varicose veins. I thought, this poor woman, you used to think, why is she making... And then I thought, actually, Les Dawson's wife doesn't exist. It's just a joke. Yeah. But you're telling jokes about your actual husband.
I do actually have a husband.
So, and but the jokes are all...
Well, I think what I like is that men in the audience say I'm unfair, is what it is. Like I've got a long routine about going out to the pub with my husband and his mates because he said, do you want to come along? But he didn't mean it. And I said, yes, and I sort of studied them on a night out. And the men really like it because I talk about all the sort of conversations they have, like who would win in a fight, tiger or shark, ridiculous conversations. Their fantasy rock bands that they put together and all of these. So the men actually are sitting there going, this is a great conversation. And the women, and my whole point is that they don't talk about anything real. And there was one of his mates who had a suntan, and I said, no one asked him about the suntan. So I said, oh, where'd you get the tan? And he said, oh, it was our 25th wedding anniversary. We went to Tenerife, me and Paulette. Then he went to the loo, and one of them went, I didn't know that Gareth was married. Did you know he was married? Because they don't talk about personal things.
It's so true. I was, sort of sitting around the table with friends, and some guy pulls out his phone, and he's got a picture of twins. He's got twins.
Yeah.
And the two wives at the table say, oh, my God, they're gorgeous. And then the blokes say, is that the Palm Pilot version 3? Is that the new one they got? Not even looking at the photo. You're so right. Do you notice that, Storm, with Kerr's friends?
No, I think Kerr's friends are a bit more emotional.
No, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
They just talk about if AC/DC's drummer died, who would you put in? That's all men talk about. You're so right.
Yeah, and I suppose it's also been in a dressing room, for many years with male comics. And when they do that listing with the band, and I thought, I'll think of the most ridiculous list that I can think of when they're talking about music because I'm bored of them. And so I said, all right, I said best bass player on a live album. And they immediately all had a list.
Yeah, Thin Lizzy.
I thought it was a ridiculous thing.
Straight away, Thin Lizzy, absolutely, live in Hammersmith, That's so brilliant. But your husband's one of these new men, is he?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because I've never been out with just him and his friends.
Well, exactly.
Because I've never really been invited. But I have been out in mixed company with his friends and their girlfriends, and they're all very sort of emotionally attuned to talking about real
I think they're different in mixed company. They've learnt, they can adapt.
Okay.
But I have the thing, I go out with a friend who's maybe, and actually one of my friends recently became a dad quite late in life. And so I think I've got to ask, I know I'm not interested, obviously, but I've got to ask every question because my wife's going to ask. So I come back and Rachel says, oh, right, how's father? Good. And when was it born? Last month. And what's its name? What, is it a boy or girl? Oh, I couldn't ask about all the details, Rachel. Yeah. I couldn't ask the details. That's it, though, isn't it?
But because I had exactly that scenario with a friend of my husband's, and he went out for a drink with him, and I don't know his wife that well, but I asked, and I said, oh, how's Stuart's wife? Meet her. And he went, oh, they split up. Big news. So I went, oh, when was that? My husband goes, 2 years ago. And I knew nothing about it, so I had a lot of follow-up questions. And unlike you, he hadn't asked the questions. No. And he said, I don't know, we didn't talk about it. And this I thought was sort of sweet, but he goes, I would have done if he wanted to, but luckily he didn't want to. Yeah. So we talked about Dundee United.
I love it. It's so interesting. Okay, and also, you have written a book, The Funny Thing About Death. Mm-hmm. I'm tempted to say it's not funny, though, is it? Because it's about your family.
It is a funny book, though, because it's about my sister who died of cancer, my older sister, and she was a very funny person. So I suppose it's a sort of memoir. It started as just a sort of way to get the thoughts out of my head after she died, because when someone's such a big personality in your life, you have to think, well, you can't quite believe, how could they be dead? It's very hard to take that on board. So I sort of wrote about that. But then I started to have, write down memories of stuff we did together. And that was a bit like spending time with her. And I think when someone dies, that's when you talk to family and friends. That is the closest you can have to being with them, is to remember them with other people. So a lot of it in the book is funny. And also, I don't think we talk about it enough, that there are, even in the hospice, which she never called a hospice, she said it was a sort of spa, because she was on the trajectory of, this is going to end well, and I'm not allowing anyone to say otherwise. And that's another way of dealing with it, that not everybody wants to go openly talk about their cancer. So, but lots of funny things happened even there, and it helps you through it.
As a comedian, I know you're aware of everything going on with Russell Brand, and we can't talk about specifically what he may or may not have done, but what are your thoughts on it?
To me, it seems that it's a much wider problem of someone who's in power, but it happens a lot in television, I would say, because there's nobody to go to. Because if they're the star, the whole organisation is around them. And so if you go to your boss and go, well, he's doing these things, and often that's the insidious nature, I think, of what happens to women. You go, is that enough to complain about? But it is. But we've got this culture of you should put up with it, or it's done with a laugh. So it's just a laugh. And I think that seems to be what happened there. Everything was a laugh. And I feel pessimistic, because I think this will happen again, or it is happening right now. And if you're a young runner or trying to be a producer, you know not to complain, because there's a load of other people who will have your job.
Interesting. Okay, well, make sure you catch Joe's tour. Here Comes Trouble. Do get your tickets now. Look forward to it.
I'd like to give Joe one piece of advice that was passed on to me by Barry Humphries. You're not ready for it yet, Joe, but it will come. He said the great secret is to do a farewell tour. I've been doing them for 20 years, and they're packed out.
Oh, bless him, Barry Humphries. Oh.
Bless him.
Okay.